Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wi-Fi Now TV in association with RCR Wireless News. My name is Claus, Hetting, and I'm your host. On this week's show, the Wi-Fi market and getting core networks ready for carrier-grade Wi-Fi everywhere. We've got BandwidthX on the show. They've created a dynamic exchange for the buying and selling of Wi-Fi bandwidth. We'll ask CEO of BandwidthX, Pertti Visuri, how he thinks the market for Wi-Fi bandwidth is developing. Also, carrier-grade core networks for a Wi-Fi first world with CTO of Benu Networks, Rajat, Ghai. Join us for these guests and more right after this. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the 12th episode of Wi-Fi Now TV. We've got a couple of great guests in store for you in just a moment. But before we get to our guests, I just want to mention once again that Wi-Fi Now conference is coming up in Amsterdam on this November 17th to 19th. We're still about 4 weeks out, so there's still time to make plans to join us. We've got lots of carriers there. We've got fantastic Wi-Fi companies, including, just to mention a few, Mimosa, Aerohive, Ruckus Wireless, Benu Networks, they're on this show, and of course, BandwidthX will also be there. So there's lots of opportunity to meet some of the people that you'll see on the show today. And also, just one more comment about that. Don't forget, if you're visiting Amsterdam for this event from the United States, you're entitled to a long-distance discount. If you want that, if you're interested in that, get in touch with me at klaus@wifinowevents.com, and we'll set you up for that. All right. That was my usual self-promoting plug for today. And with that, I'd like to introduce my first guest. He is CEO of multi-award-winning startup BandwidthX. BandwidthX has created a service for the exchange of Wi-Fi bandwidth between carriers, and the award that they just won, in fact, last week, was at the Wi-Fi Global Congress in San Jose. They won the award for Best Wi-Fi Management Solution. My guest today, CEO of BandwidthX, Pertti Visuri. Pertti, welcome to the show.
Hi, Klaus. Nice to talk with you again.
You know, Pertti, I just want to say, just because you're Finnish, native Finn, I know you live in the United States, I'm actually recording this show today from Helsinki, Finland. I happen to be here. That's why my background is a bit funny. Is that nice?
Nice to hear that. One of my favorite cities, of course, Copenhagen is on the list as well. So
second favorite. Okay, very good. Pertti, for our viewers that are not familiar with BandwidthX, just give us the 2-minute short overview of what you guys do.
Okay, so we offer the mobile operators the opportunity to use third-party Wi-Fi through an open marketplace where they can buy Wi-Fi capacity based on the value that Wi-Fi provides them in different situations. And examples of these situations are, for example, for an MVNO, they can save on their cellular costs if they can buy Wi-Fi at a lower cost, and they want to do that all the time. Other simple examples are obviously roaming. Lots of companies are using roaming data both in their own country and, of course, elsewhere. Poor coverage, if there's a LTE signal is not strong enough, a fast Wi-Fi network can be quite valuable in ensuring that the customers have a good customer experience. And for the longer term, of course, like you said in your blog about the $2 trillion experience, the capacity needs are going to be growing enormously, and I agree with you that Wi-Fi can provide enormous value on that. An open market where the value dictates whether you buy and what you pay. And obviously for the Wi-Fi providers, anyone with Wi-Fi capacity can participate in the market. There's no upfront cost, and they can basically just list their Wi-Fi for sale, again, under very detailed policies of when and where they want their Wi-Fi to be available to others.
Right, so Pertti, tell us, how difficult or easy is it to get buyers and sellers to meet? Because that's really what you're doing. You're creating a commercial framework for this to happen, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's the same thing initially. We spend a lot of time letting people understand how does it work, what the value is, why does it make best sense for them to just participate at the level for these different situations, that the value that they can get from Wi-Fi. Now we're through that part. We have tens of millions of devices under contract. We're signing new contracts every month, and we're at the scale-up point. But this is a new paradigm. We're seeing everybody's Wi-Fi network putting that to use as we say sometimes, the dark Wi-Fi to use. 95% of the Wi-Fi capacity or more today goes unutilized. And so it's easy to see if you can create value with that you should participate. But of course, in this industry, everything takes time.
Right. So I also understand from our conversations earlier today that you are in commercial operation with.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, we have millions of devices. I think I said already under contract. We're ramping up several companies, commercial agreements on both sides of the marketplace, and we're signing new all along.
All right. So is it fair to assume that you are presumably working with, on the Wi-Fi side, cable operators with a fairly big footprint? I'm not going to mention any names, but it doesn't have to be in the United States.
That would be fair to assume, Claus.
Yes. Okay. Very good. And what would you say? What does the future look like for this? I mean, I know you guys have been working extremely hard for the past couple of years. You're now in commercial operation. What is this going to look like in a couple of years from now?
Well, we're basically scaling up with starting with millions of devices, tens of millions under contract in trial activity with companies representing hundreds of millions of devices. So this is one of those new technology ventures where scaling is by orders of magnitude and not percentages. But when you ask about the future, I think everybody is already thinking of 5G, the next generation. How are we going to meet the challenge of 1,000 times more capacity at a fraction of the energy consumption that we're doing today and a fraction of the cost? So I believe that Wi-Fi is really the first pillar in the 5G vision, which, as you know, is a combination of different radio access technologies, and they cannot possibly be all owned by the operator who provides the service. So I see this brave new world of 5G being network as a service, operator enhanced partner services, and vice versa. And all of that is going to need the commercial and business layer. And that's the role that we see for BandwidthX regarding all of these new technologies.
Right, good. So what about the role of BandwidthX and the service you provide in something like, for example, IoT? Now, it's fairly early days for IoT still, and we're still trying to work out how all of that's going to work, essentially.
Well, on IoT, already people working in that field have made statements that most of the keys, the things that you would want to connect to, are within the Wi-Fi range of your sort of center of living. So I believe Wi-Fi is going to play a huge role in connecting the Internet of Things. And again, in different parts of the world, different people own Wi-Fi networks. Even in a single part, nobody has 100% market share. So it needs to be a combination of networks. And that's where we see our role. We make the third-party networks all work as one seamless resource and mediate the commerce and the seamless automatic connections, whether it's IoT, your smartphone, or Wi-Fi only tablet. We're sort of at the commercial layer, and we work together with others. So we don't want to do all of it. There are great connection management companies who are our cooperation partners. There are Wi-Fi aggregators with whom we work. So we just provide that business layer and the connectivity that needs to happen between companies. It's a business-to-business proposition, and simplifying the agreements, helping people share the value they create by putting Wi-Fi to use. That's our role.
Absolutely. Pertti, talk to us a little bit about the technology, because we've had a whole bunch of people come on the show, including companies like Smith Micro. Next week we have BirdStep going on the show. People that work on the device client side, and device client are obviously an important component of having seamless handoffs and so forth. And your solution presumably also will need to support this in order to function at a competitive level out there, or not?
Great companies, the ones that you mentioned, good cooperation partners for us as well. It's true also in our case that it works better from an end user experience perspective if you have intelligence on the device or client. And we provide our own client in case that is needed and can provide additional value. But we can also work with other clients and add the marketplace functionality to them. And most of the intelligence is actually on the network side in the cloud-based BX market. So it's possible to run the market also by just putting in profiles into devices. So it does not necessarily need a client in the operation, as long as the device knows to connect and the BX market can do its job in terms of checking that the policies on both the seller and the buyer side line up properly.
Mm-hmm. All right, tell us a little bit about the viability, and this is basically at least a big part of your business, the viability of using HomeSpots essentially as third-party sources of capacity. Because there is a lot of discussion amongst people, probably most people that have not worked with it, whether or not it's viable to have a HomeSpot which is located inside a building, in an apartment or a residential house, and to use the spillover from that to actually, visitors is one thing, but the spillover essentially, that presumably what you call dark fiber, as extra capacity that you can sell off. Is this being used effectively, and can you share some numbers of this sort of usage or give us an indication?
Absolutely viable. We have lots of experience, and in addition to our commercial operation, we've done some very, very thorough tests with hundreds of thousands of devices where we measure the effect of different types of Wi-Fi sources. And I believe every Wi-Fi access point can provide value. It's not just the spillover. That's a concept that people often think about, that you drive by or walk by a home and you utilize the Wi-Fi of that. But people visit one another. And how often do you say, hey, would you give me your Wi-Fi password so I can save 3 cents on my smartphone data bill? Almost never. So HomeSpots are used when people are in the home or outside the home who are not family members, who don't have the access to the private network. So absolutely viable, and I think a great source of capacity as well.
Very good. What would you say is the hardest thing about what you're doing right now? I know you commercialized, you developed the technology. What are the next hurdles that you need to jump over?
Well, I think the challenges that we face are the same as the challenges are for the industry in general. We're all together going to need to meet this, pick a number, 1,000 times, 10,000 times capacity increase, getting broadband to everyone. And we have this great resource available in Wi-Fi, in advanced LTE, and in next generation radio networks with their own latency and speed characteristics. The challenge is, how do you take all these resources that belong to different parties in the ecosystem and make them all play together? That's where we spend a lot of time. How do we coordinate it? How do we make the experience seamless? And how do we give the operators, both on the mobile side and the Wi-Fi side, complete control of when their resources are used and what resources they use?
And you have, as I remember it, a very sophisticated way of setting the right price between buyer and seller.
Yes. That's a key part of our solution. And let me put a plug in for one of our advisory board members. Professor Al Roth published a book earlier this summer. The title of the book is Who Gets What and Why? Professor Roth won the Nobel Prize in Economics 2012 when we were just starting to design our system. He found this opportunity and problem so interesting that he has been intimately involved in guiding the design of the market. And you're right, it's not simple, but others have done it and created tremendous value. Google AdWords, Uber, Airbnb are all mentioned in the book, StubHub, others, where a market design all of a sudden unlocks the value in a resource that until now has been unutilized.
But presumably it also has to be transparent enough for the buyers and sellers for themselves to understand exactly what the logic is behind it.
That's right. And the way the market works is that, in the economic theory of creating wealth, when you take something that has a value for the seller and you provide it to the buyer, the value that you create is the difference in the value for the seller, or the opportunity cost really for the seller, and the value that the buyer can get from using the resource. Mm-hmm. And the way the market works is that it shares that value that this cooperation generates equitably between the buyer and the seller. And that's why the participation is so simple. And the simplicity is the key to creating commerce in such a complex environment.
Pertti, it's fantastic to have you on the show. We're delighted also, of course, that you're coming to Wi-Fi Now, the conference in Amsterdam, where everybody gets to meet you and ask all the even more complicated questions. Well, mine weren't that complicated.
Hey, it's great to talk with you, Claus. I'm going to be talking about the dilemma of unwanted Wi-Fi. And that's on my phone.
Sorry, that is my, you can blame Apple for that. Sorry, go ahead. I'll explain what that was.
No problem. So I just wanted to say that looking forward to giving our presentation at Amsterdam and sharing more of this with you.
Pertti, apologies. I need to switch off my FaceTime when I do these interviews because Apple is screwing up my program. So, but anyway, thank you so much, Pertti, for coming on. We'll see you in Amsterdam, and good luck and lots of progress to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, everybody. Sorry about that glitch. Yeah, I need to remember to do that. All right, my next guest is in a similar space, a little bit different, of course. Benu Networks is doing a great deal of work with Wi-Fi on the Wi-Fi core network side to support some of the biggest cable operators in the world, including some of the famous ones in the United States. Of course, Rajat, Ghai, you're the CTO of Benu Networks. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Claus. Good to be on.
Good to see you. So Rajat, for those of our viewers who do not know Benu, and you're a fairly young company making great progress, just explain to the general public out there what Benu Networks does.
Sure. So Benu Networks is like a 5-year-old company. You can probably get a sense of who our investors are, and what some of the large customers are from our website, the company's page. So what we are in the business of, we created an architecture and then a platform to support that architecture to let our customer, which are carriers, to create very large scale mobile Wi-Fi infrastructure. And I emphasize on mobile because again, Wi-Fi has over its evolution, created this sense of the new mobility paradigm, right? So that bridges wireline and what we call traditional 4G, 3G, 4G wireless. So this nomadic mobility, and it creates a whole new set of mobile services now that, especially though for those carriers who didn't have licensed spectrum, and they can offer a complete set of mobile services to their users or they can offer these services to the likes of what Pertti was talking about for BandwidthX. So utilizing this unlicensed spectrum to provide value-added services, I think that's what our platform infrastructure enables. So we call this platform like the virtual service edge. So, and if I was to, at a high level, define what the architecture looks like, there are really two components.
Sorry to interrupt. Maybe we can bring up the slide, the Benu slide, because I think that explains it really well.
Right.
You want to speak from that, because I think that's a good picture.
Sure. So there are like two main components. Obviously, there are a lot of Wi-Fi access points that are provisioned simply as like Wi-Fi in bridged mode. So these are Wi-Fi bridges that connect to a common aggregation point in the carrier's Wi-Fi core. And this common core actually provides all the IP services that these clients that attach to Wi-Fi network, Wi-Fi access points. Things like initially authenticating the clients and authorizing them for service, seamless mobility as these clients drift and walk, and move from one access point to another access point. All the policy enforcement the carriers might have based on user subscription or their policies. Common billing and charging information. So when clients connect to these large Wi-Fi networks, you have to provide, how much data was used, and so that they can, put them in back-end accounting, as well as like a clearinghouse for roaming. Things like, again, what Pertti was talking about from BandwidthX, roaming settlement and charging interfaces for other partners they may have like roaming agreements with. And finally, like things like even in case if it's needed, providing seamless handover to even forge macro cellular network in case you run out of Wi-Fi coverage. So these are all, this is called what the common core is. And you really require this to support a large scale Wi-Fi architecture. Otherwise, it doesn't scale at cost effectively as the previous Wi-Fi technologies were.
So if we look at this, just coming back to this slide, so you're actually presenting three different cases here that maybe, as I understand it, obviously there's the home or home spot, the Wi-Fi that, for example, Comcast uses this in Xfinity, of course. And then there's public hotspots that are deployed in any kind of venue or business or what it might be. And the third is then outdoor public hotspots.
Or venue.
For?
Or like public outdoor hotspots or venues.
Right, exactly, outdoor public hotspots. Yeah. So what you're actually saying is, in order for all of this to give a seamless user experience, this is essentially what you provide. This has to be integrated towards the same common core.
Yeah, exactly. So what you can't have is a fragmented architecture, because these are mobile services. So what you would see is there may be a different class of Wi-Fi access points, right? Home hotspots are typically, your sub $100 access points that provide one or dual band radios with 4 to 6 or 8 sessions, all the way to very dense Wi-Fi access points, which may cost over $1,000, and they provide a lot more Wi-Fi capabilities and radios. But the back-end architecture is the same. So no matter what class of Wi-Fi access point you onboard the network, your service experience will always be the same, provided by a common core, Wi-Fi core.
And this obviously must be critical for some of the big MSOs that you work with, now that they are at least rumored to be entering the wireless market, perhaps more seriously in coming years.
Oh yeah. So obviously we have made some announcements. Some of the largest tier 1 operators are deploying ultra large scale. When I say ultra large scale, I'm talking about millions or tens of millions of flat Wi-Fi mobile cores. And also this is just the first step into the long Wi-Fi revolution, because the same access points which they all have capabilities to provide virtual SSIDs. A virtual SSID is a virtual network slice. So imagine these access points broadcasting more than one SSID, sharing the same radio infrastructure. So you could have a carrier Wi-Fi SSID. On other SSIDs, you could actually enable, using the same architecture, private networks, which were actually used by users for their private purposes. You can actually now create virtual CPE use cases for residential broadband or businesses. So it creates a new class of services, whether it's carrier Wi-Fi or what we call like smart internet for home users and smart business for business users, to create these virtual services that actually helps by this architecture, lets the operators transform themselves into a cloud service provider as well.
Absolutely. So just maybe if you could share with us as many details as you can, perhaps of a particular success story, particular client that you have, with some examples maybe also of, I'm always looking for numbers. I think it's fascinating to hear, for example, how much people use public hotspots and stuff like that. I don't know if you're at liberty to tell us or things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So there, obviously, we can we see as a common theme, we are seeing the traffic uptake on these carrier Wi-Fi networks. It's just taking up like a hockey stick, depending whether it's outdoor venue or home. But some of the more public information that we're able to share, and it's public, for example, if you go, some of the numbers that, very interesting numbers that Comcast published out of their, the Pope visited Philadelphia. And over that weekend, they actually saw, something like 850,000 unique visitors access their Xfinity Wi-Fi. And collectively in a day, they use that Xfinity Wi-Fi network to both upload and download like around 115 terabytes of data. So 4.3 million unique sessions just on their Xfinity Wi-Fi network. Now, I've lived my past life building mobile packet cores in LTE networks. That kind of numbers, we used to see that like not even like months, in quarters. So like 115 terabytes of data is because the user experience on Wi-Fi is very different than LTE. On Wi-Fi, when people search Wi-Fi, they're using all the over-the-top video services. They're watching Netflix, over-the-top video. They're watching Facebook videos, something they cannot do on LTE networks because they're limited by their quota they have per month. So that ubiquity now creates a whole new value, which comes from this large asset of mobile Wi-Fi hotspots they have. So at certain point, this pays off. So I think with Comcast, they have actually published, they were planning to do up to like 8 million Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots in 2014. A year later, they're now at 11 million. So now 11 million, carrier Wi-Fi, with the Xfinity Wi-Fi brand, they're actually running world's largest Wi-Fi small cell network. So now they can actually extract value out of the network. When you see people using this network to transfer like hundreds of terabytes a day, I think that's when you know you have made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are astronomical figures, and fantastic to see that all this usage is going into these carrier-grade managed Wi-Fi networks. And Rajat, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on. And also, we look forward to seeing you as well in Amsterdam for Wi-Fi Now, the conference, where people will be able to get a chance to ask a lot more questions and meet you in person. I really think they should, because you guys are doing pioneering work on the core network side in the US, and hopefully also very soon in Europe. Are you working in Europe now as well, Rajat? Or?
Yeah, we have obviously we have Liberty Global as an announced customer, and they're investors in Benu as well. So and then a lot of with carrier Wi-Fi again, like a lot of exciting stuff is happening in this space.
Great stuff. We'll see you then, Rajat, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks a lot, Claus.
Thanks. All right, everybody, that's what I had for this remote edition of Wi-Fi Now, episode 12. All there's left is to tell you who's coming on the show next week. We've got CEO Lonnie Schilling of Birdstep. Birdstep is one of the leaders in intelligent connectivity management, and he is a super insightful and fantastic guest to have on any TV show. So we're looking forward to that. Also, it actually gets a lot better and more controversial next week, because we'll be discussing perhaps the hottest topic in the industry today, coexistence of LTE-U and Wi-Fi. Our other guest next week is Rob Aldifer, VP of Technology Policy at Cable Labs. We're going to ask him all the interesting questions about LTE Wi-Fi coexistence. So don't miss it. Same place, same time next week. See you then, and thank you for watching.
Wi-Fi Now is a production of RCR TV News. To suggest a show topic or to learn more about Wi-Fi Now events, you can reach Claus Hetting at klaus@hettingconsulting.com. To find out more about Wi-Fi Now and all things wireless, visit rcrwireless.com.